Hey guys, so here's my how-to video on the hip thruster and glute thrusting. I think every woman, girl out there should be hip thrusting, especially if you're wanting to work on the booty. Yeah, the hip thruster, it is probably the best invention ever created for women in the gym. Done by yours truly, Bret Contreras. Hence the reason I hired him. He is known as the glute guru, and yes, he invented the hip thruster. Get out of here. I think every girl should own a hip thruster. If not every girl, then the gym that you're training at should at least have one. Especially if you're serious about your glute training and growing your glutes, the hip thruster is the best. It's made for hip thrusting. Of course, if you don't have one, or if your gym does not have one, you can use a bench, but that's why I want to show you this how to use the hip thruster and why it's so much better than just your average bench. Just some basic notes on it. It's got the perfect bench height. A regular bench is going to be a little too high, and this is made for that perfect height. It's stable. So on a regular bench, it's not connected to another platform, which therefore if you start heavy hip thrusting, then you're going to be sliding back and moving around and trying to readjust or trying to position the bench to where it doesn't move. The hip thruster, it's already set and ready to go for you. So here is the how-to and some instructions on the hip thruster. All right, here it is, hip thruster. It's got pegs, wheels, a soft padded bench for the perfect height, and then that platform there is non-slick, so it's great for your feet. So when you're hip thrusting, especially when you're using weight, I highly recommend that you use a belt. This is my belt that I love. It's from Better Bodies. It's flexible. It's small, it's Velcro, it's not super heavy duty, and it's just my personal favorite. They have a bunch of different kinds and colors and sizes, so it's just kind of a personal preference, but I do recommend wearing a belt. So a basic hip thrust, some important notes. How to get on the hip thruster. I put my upper to mid back on the bench, and it'll take a little bit of positioning, but you will figure your perfect position out. I'm keeping everything in line here. My spine, my tailbone, my neck, my eyes are forward, and I'm pushing up through the heels and squeezing at the top, and just getting that full range of motion going all the way down and then back up at the top. So some common mistakes are here next. So do nots. You want to be careful of your positioning. You don't want to be too low. As you can see, I am here, and I'm really arching my back at the bottom and then really just flicking my pelvis forward. Also, you can be too high on the bench, and again, flinging of the neck and the head and just trying to get that momentum. You're really probably going to just crack a neck or a vertebrae and not use those glutes. And then yes, not using a full range of motion is really just not doing anything for the glutes either. You want to be able to go all the way down and all the way back up. So once you feel comfortable with that, then you could do single leg or a unilateral hip thrust, and this will just help obviously to engage each glute. Again, it's the same thing. You want to just make sure that your back is positioned right on the bench and keeping everything in line. Keep your eye gaze looking forward. And then again, this is a kind of tough one, and it still is for me this day, is just that balance. So I keep my leg up. Some people could put it across them though. So another great alternative to weights are banded work, and the hip thruster has pegs on it, which is awesome because you just hook your band up and you're ready to go. It's going to be the same thing with positioning on the bench and making sure everything stays in line. Bands are so great for resistance work, and Bret actually has me doing banded stuff every workout, and it burns like fire. So it's great on just keeping that activation and engagement in the glutes, and just is something else to keep them guessing besides just putting heavy weights on them or nothing at all. The hip thruster is not just for hip thrusting, so you can also do Bulgarian split squats, which I really love because, again, that the bench is a perfect height. So with a regular bench, it's almost always too high, and that back leg usually ends up working more than the front leg, and my quad starts to burn, and then it's connected to this platform, so I'm not sliding around, and I know that I'm not going to have slippery feet, and I can use these with dumbbells, or I could use them banded even. It just depends on what you're wanting to do. I think my favorite feature of the hip thruster is the fact that it has wheels, because I am constantly heavy hip thrusting, and I don't always want to move my weights around, so I can just pick this bad boy up and roll it to wherever I need to. So it's really helpful. So this is what I use for my heavy hip thrust. It's just a basic neck pad, which Bret is probably going to kill me because I have not gotten what he's told me to buy, which is an actual glute thrusting pad. And I'm actually going to put that link in the description box below, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, on to heavy hip thrusting. So if you're ready to use the weights, make sure you got your belt, get all secure, and you roll your hip thruster over there. I'm just using just a plate on each side, just so I can get underneath the bar. If you were to use smaller weights, I would maybe suggest getting some kind of block platforms underneath your weights so that it raises the bar up higher and it's easier for you to get up underneath. Make sure you're positioned in the middle of the bar. It's, again, going to be a little tricky at first with the weights, but I usually just kind of pick up on my elbows and then reposition myself and my feet, and make sure that my back is in line on the bench. And then I'm making sure that I'm getting everything engaged, and the same thing as the hip thrust 101, I'm keeping everything in line. Eye gaze is forward, and I'm hip thrusting up through the heels and squeezing at the top. If you notice that you are going to those do nots that I showed you, you probably should lower the weight and work your way up. It's never worth it to try to just fling the weight up. You need to be able to do proper form in order to actually engage those glutes. And Bret has helped me tremendously with that, and showing me proper form, and which has actually made my weights go up. Well, I hope you enjoyed my how to use the hip thruster. If you are serious about that booty, then I would highly recommend that you look into getting a hip thruster. Be sure to check the description box below, as I'll have a link to where you can purchase the hip thruster, or just look into some more information on it. Also, be sure to like this video if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Keep on thrusting.